Thumbs up? No. Serena Fish?
Here. Here.
Got it. Art Taylor? Not present. Jeff Woodard?
Present.
And Pastor Bennett?
Here.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming today. I'll just let you guys know before we get started here. Well, we want to make sure we can adjourn by 5:45 so we can get started with our quarterly meeting. We need a little bit of time beforehand to get that set up. So just keep that in mind. So let's give time for public comment, if there's any at this time. And
There is none.
okay, thanks, Nora. No public comment. We'll move right along. If I am moving along too fast, feel free to step in, raise your hand, stop me, whatever you need to do. Okay. Let's look at the consideration of approving the minutes from February's meeting and June. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at those?
I have a couple things on the June meeting.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the June, two things. Number 11, we have future meeting dates, and it's July 8th, and it's actually now July 9th.
The minutes reflect what was said at that meeting.
Oh, okay. And number 10, there were different nominations other than the one we came at the end. Are we just going to disregard that and just take the one that was the end nomination?
We'll discuss that on number 7 on the agenda for today.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Chairman, I believe Member Fish is referring to nominations for president or for chair and vice chair, and not for the vacancy on the board. Am I correct, Member Fish?
Yes, that's correct.
And to that, it's the board's preference whether you want more detail in the notes. They are fine as presented. There is also a recording of the meeting if needed.
That's fine with me. I'm just trying to make sure the minutes are perfect. So.
Does anybody else have any comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's good to go because it's a discussion was had and ultimately, so I think it's good to go.
Okay. We have Mr. Taylor on now.
Hello.
Welcome, Mr. Taylor.
How you doing?
We're doing well, thank you.
I'm present.
Okay. We'll have I'll have you mute, and then once just to make sure we there you go, one at a time. Okay.
Also, this is George Boyle. I'm Assistant Corporation Counsel. I wanted to let folks know that I'm attending. And
We got it. Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
sure.
Okay, so we make a motion to approve February and June's meeting minutes. Do I have a?
I make a motion to approve February and June's minutes as is.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving right along here.
Chair,
Excuse.
the whole board should vote on the motion in the second.
Got it.
And I will say too that because of the virtual meeting setup, the new legislation that was passed on that says that all the votes have to be roll call votes. So I know a lot of times when we do minutes, we just do it by voice vote, yeas and nays. But because of these new rules that were passed 2 or 3 weeks ago, everything needs to be a roll call vote.
Okay. Can I get so we'll start with Mr. Woodard.
That's a yes.
Thank you. Ms. Fish?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Pastor Bennett?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes as well. All right. Well, thank you.
You
Go ahead, Serena.
missed Miss Lancaster.
You're right. Miss Lancaster? She is not present currently. And, Nora, is there any, if Miss Lancaster's not here, is there any?
Yeah, you could probably record her as a pass or undecided or just not voting.
Okay.
It's at least six to with one undecided or one not voting, one passing.
Well, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to, let's see here, number 5, discussions of complaints received. Sister Chief Wombly, can you give us an update, please?
Yes. Well, I don't have the paperwork. I'll try and maybe next meeting, I'll try and send this paperwork out early to you guys so you can have it as well. But as of right now, we've had 8 citizen complaints received in 2020. Of the 8 that we've received, 4 have been closed. I have 2 more that are actually sitting on my desk. I got to finish reviewing so I can get the letters out. They should be closed out here by the end of the week. But 8 so far, 4 pending. We've had 0 requests for the PSCRB in 2020.
Okay, any questions from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Hi. Thank you, Chief Wombly. Could you give us a breakdown of the complaints that were received, the nature of those complaints, and I mean, I know that that 4 of them are still pending, but can you give us a breakdown of what those complaints entailed?
Yes, and I will preface the number of the allegations that I'm going to read off here constitute more than 8 because as we state on here, some complaints can have multiple allegations included in there. But we have had 3 complaints of excessive force. We've had 1 complaint of dissatisfied with service. We've had 1 complaint of unlawful search and seizure. We've had 2 complaints of courtesy to public. We've had 1 complaint of theft. We've had 1 complaint of violation of rules and regulation, 2 complaints of harassment, and 1 complaint of unlawful arrest.
And of the ones that are still pending, which ones are still pending?
You're gonna have to give me just 1 second because I got to switch over to a different computer to.
Okay.
I can't tell you off the top of my head here. Give me just a sec.
Okay, no problem.
If you would like to go on to the next one, I can come back if that works for you, just so nobody's just sitting here.
Sure, we can do that. All right, sorry about that, guys. I forgot to unmute myself. We're going to go ahead and move over to number 6 while we wait for Chief Wombly to gather that information. This is just my opinion, and I will listen to your opinion. How about we go ahead and skip number 6 and we just wait until the quarterly meeting to hear that update so we don't hear it twice? What's your opinion on that?
Go with that.
Yeah, I think so, because the chief has been telling us every meeting, what they're training and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I wait.
I'm good with that.
Mr. Warder, you good? Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. That way we just, try to keep down the redundancy. There's no reason for him to say it twice. If, I think we should hold it more for the quarterly meeting. That way everybody will hear it at once. And then if people have questions, then at that time we can get back and forth. Let's see here.
Do we have to vote?
Mr. Boyle, would we have to vote on that? I don't think so, but.
I'm not sure it's necessary. It sounds like there's a consensus. I guess we could ask if there's any objection to skipping it, and then it could be recorded as done without objection.
Okay. Is there any objection from the board from skipping agenda number 6 and moving it to the quarterly meeting? We'll start with Mr. Woodard.
No objection.
Ms. Fish,
No objection.
Pastor Bennett,
No objection.
Mr. Taylor.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. We'll move that on to the quarterly meeting. We'll go ahead and move on to number 7, the discussion of the vacancy on the board. I believe at the last meeting we had some recommendations. However, we must understand that the mayor will ultimately appoint our board vacancy. However, we can suggest. I don't know if we just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. I think we had, like I said, we had some recommendations last meeting, but just want to make sure that we should be passing the word. If we know of anybody who is interested, to go ahead and let them know that they can go online at the city website and apply, either print off or they can do it online as well. However, we do have, I'm sorry, Ms. Nora, go ahead.
Just one clarification. It is actually the council that appoints. It's the mayor. The mayor brings his recommendation to the council. The council ultimately votes on it.
Thank you for that clarification. I will say as well that we do have one application that came in. I am not comfortable right now currently sharing her name, but I will tell you there is one that's come in lately as of June 28th. That was submitted June 28th. The thing I don't know, and I'll ask the board and Nora and Mr. Boyle on here, is do we know when the council or mayor expect to announce the next candidate for this vacancy?
I don't believe there's a date certain.
Okay. Did anybody else on the board? Yes, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I think aren't we supposed to be presenting the end of the year report sometime soon?
Yes. July 20th at the committee of the whole, I myself or Mr. Taylor, since it comes from you, can either one of us present it, Nora? Okay.
The reason why I'm asking is that might be a good date to maybe look towards, but the quarterly meeting today, hopefully the stakeholders will be there and they should be able to come up with some recommendations. I have a recommendation, which the application should be in today or tomorrow. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It is Laura Sandoval. Her and her husband own Sandoval's Helping Hands. I know we're short one woman. No offense, gentlemen. And it's someone with a Hispanic background. She also has a bachelor's degree, master's degree. She's now working on a PhD as a nurse, and she also teaches. And so she owns a business, her and her husband. She's a nurse, she teaches, and she's a mom. So and she's younger than some of us. So you should be getting at the city her application. Amy was kind enough to send it to me, and I sent it on today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Nora, go ahead.
Just a note that our internal process for reviewing applications and letting council review them would not allow enough time for the July 20th meeting.
Thank you. Pastor Bennett, go ahead.
Yeah, my question, maybe two. The city council and the mayor, or has there been any public announcement from them or from any other entity? And will there be about the vacancy on the board? Has there been any kind of public announcement about that? Or is it kind of just going by word of mouth from our board?
I'm not aware of any public announcement.
Do we want to, maybe the board could also think about if we want to recommend that there be some type, I know there was for us to fill out applications when we filled ours out initially. I think that would get us the wider variety, unless we just want to go by word of mouth from the board and those who are reaching out to others to make those suggestions. Just a thought.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
One of the things that, as I was assisting in helping to prepare the agenda for the quarterly meeting later today, I inadvertently left off discussion of the opening on the board. It would have been a perfect opportunity for us to discuss that at the quarterly meeting and present to stakeholders excuse me, the opportunity to nominate or make themselves available to nominate individuals that they think would be an asset to the board. I'm not sure how we can add that as an agenda item, or whether or whether or not it is something that can be discussed during public comment. So I don't know. I inadvertently left it off of the agenda items for the quarterly meeting.
Under your Q&A section, you have C, which is other.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can bring it up. Yeah, we can definitely bring that up during our quarterly meeting. I think it would be best if it comes from one of our quarterly meetings, informational, instead of the city or promoting it. I mean, they can if they want as well, but I think it would be best if it comes from us, and we're putting that word out there that we're looking for somebody to join us on the board. Does anybody else have any other comments? Yes, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Vasquez. Also, though, again, I would like to see us put it in the report for the yearly that we have a vacancy and that we are looking for it when you do report to the city council, so that it is on the city council information. Because like Mr. Bennett said, when we originally started this board, there was almost 90 people that applied. And I don't know if those people are still available, still want to do it. I know the mayor and the council disregarded some of them for different reasons, but there was a big outpouring of people that were interesting. So I would like to see it included that we're looking for someone in the annual report to the city council. Plus, then let the city council tell us when they're ready to maybe review it, and could we be included?
Nora, go ahead.
Sorry for jumping in so much during this meeting. You've already accepted the report as is, but you could mention it in your verbal comments for whomever gives that report to council.
Just for, I will suggest that I give that report if it's okay with Mr. Vasquez and the rest of the board, since I'm the one that wrote it. And I'll be happy to add that in my extemporaneous comments that I'll be adding to the report, probably at the request of the city council and maybe during the question and answer period. But I'll definitely include that as something that because the annual report is really for 2019. And it's a report of our activities for 2019. And the board opening was not, didn't occur in 2019, but it is something that's an ongoing activity and interest of the board. And if it's okay with you, I'll include that as part of my report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Yes, I'm perfectly fine with that. Any other discussion from the board?
So Nora, we are on. I am on the agenda for the committee of the whole.
You can be either the committee of the whole on the 20th or the council meeting on the 27th, whichever works best.
The sooner the better.
Okay.
Okay.
And what time would that be, Nora?
6 p.m.
Okay.
And of course, I would really love it if all the members of the board were present, if possible.
Yes. Also, Nora, would that be a virtual meeting, I'm assuming?
The committee of the whole on the 20th will take place just like this one will. There might be some people present in chambers. I think we're able to accommodate around 20 people, so there could be some, but there will still be a virtual component, yes.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Ms. Fish, go ahead.
And do we need to vote for those changes and all the above that we just talked about?
With regard to that, it's marked as a discussion item. It sounds like, and so you can't really do anything very formal when it's marked that way. But it sounds like you've made some decisions about how you're going to reach out to the community in the various groups that are interested to fill the vacancy, and that Mr. Taylor will be presenting that to the council. Those are kind of maybe less formal that, aren't Open Meetings Act problems. But if you get to voting and specific kinds of things, it's a little closer to being problematic with regard to the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, I'm just checking, Mr. Boyle. I don't want to get you on my bad side.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle, for the clarification.
Right.
Okay. As Mr. Taylor said, he'll be giving the 2019 annual report July 20th, 6 p.m. And I would also strongly encourage the board to virtually attend if possible. Is there any other discussion of the vacancy? Okay, Chief Wombley, are you ready? Can we go back to you?
Yes. Okay, to answer your question, Mr. Taylor, the 4 complaints that are still pending, we have one that has a theft component or complaint in it. We have another that has excessive force. The third one has excessive force and unlawful restraint. And the fourth one has harassment, courtesy to public, and a policy violation.
Thank you. I guess my only comment to that would be, and I guess it's not something that you may be able to share. I'm not really sure of the parameters here, but I guess what I'm wanting to delve into and drill down to is whether or not any of these complaints that we have are complaints with a single officer where there is a pattern of a particular officer getting complaints at them, or is this more of a random selection of complaints that each individual complaint is with a different officer? You see what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wanting to know if we have a problem officer, or is this just something that the public is bringing forward to the police department in the way of generally complaining about the conduct of officers when they are responding to a complaint of some type? And I'm not sure how you want to frame that answer, but and whether or not it's even something that can be shared due to the confidentiality of your aspect of the complaint process. But I'm kind of interested in knowing whether or not in the city of Bloomington we have a problem with a particular officer or group of officers, or is this just citizens complaining about how an officer responded to a call that they made?
Okay, I can tell you for sure that it's not one officer or a group of officers, because if it was, we would be handling that completely differently, because Chief Donath, myself, any of the assistant chiefs, we're not going to stand for that. So these are all different types of officers. And one thing to remember, I mean, we have 128 officers here. So these complaints are spread out amongst 128 different people within the department. So does that answer your question?
That answers my question, but it also and I'm kind of asking this in a devil's advocate type of way, simply because at the quarterly meeting, this might be the type of a question that you might get, and coming from the community, it's something that I would want to know as a community member as to whether or not the complaints that we're receiving, while few in number, and I can't overemphasize the fact that I'm happy that we only have a very small number of complaints. I'm also interested in knowing that we don't have a problem with a particular officer or group of officers that could cause a problem for the city at some point down the road. And it's something that I think in the way of preparation, that the Bloomington Police, or you in particular, would need to be able to respond to at a public forum like the quarterly meeting, that would be helpful in communicating that type of activity. It's also something that I think that we as a board should be asking and making sure that as the inoculation that we are to the citizens of Bloomington and the conduit to the Bloomington Police, that we want to know. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Woodard, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could add to that, on that note, Chief Walmsley, just so we're clear, there were 8 complaints. Out of the 8, 3 were for excessive force, and out of those 3, 2 have been resolved.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Pastor Bennett, go ahead.
I guess got 2 quick questions. You had mentioned, I think 4 out of the 8 were closed. Just to my recollection, closed meaning that as far as the Bloomington Police Department is concerned in your investigation of the issue, you have resolved it on your end, sent the letter of what that resolution is. And as far as you guys conducting any more business as to that complaint, that is that what closed means?
Yes, the letter has been sent. That's when I say close, that's what I mean. We're done with our aspect. I send the 2 letters that we send out.
Okay, and still just making sure, still included in that closing letter is the acknowledgement that if they're not satisfied or they want to take a next step type of situation, that they can make that complaint to the PSCRB. Is that correct? That's still going out with the information from the Bloomington Police Department's response?
Yes, that's actually included in my letter, as well as a pamphlet is included in with the letter. So it's mentioned twice.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief Walmsley. Before we move on, is there any other questions for Assistant Chief Walmsley? Hearing no questions, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to agenda number 8, which is discussion of future meetings, times, locations, and topics. I think we've discussed this before in previous meetings. Do we need to hold a monthly meeting? And if we still do, which is fine, when we hold our quarterly meetings, do we still hold a meeting, our board meeting before a quarterly meeting, or can we just combine our board meeting with our quarterly meeting in order to, avoid any because what we're talking about right now, we're just going to talk again about in our quarterly meeting. So what are people's opinions about having a monthly meeting and or combining our monthly meeting when we have our quarterly meeting? And then we'll discuss about dates and times. Go ahead, Ms. Fish.
I think as time goes on, we may not need every month, but for right now, with some of the climate and people wanting to know what is going on with us, the police, the stakeholders, that it's important that we do still do a meeting once a month to keep people informed. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
I agree. Definitely because of the climate that we're in right now. I think that it's probably important, even for the us being visible to the community with ongoing conversations with reference to what's going on in the country. Even though we are blessed not to have anything going on here in Bloomington normal, still the acknowledgement that we are present and we are ready, willing, and able to listen and be a conduit to conversation between the community and the police department. I think that our role as board members puts us in that position. And I think that we should be available to the community, even for public comment or to attend a meeting or whatever. And I'm not saying that there won't come a time when that won't be necessary, but I think that for the time being, that I think this is something that maybe we visit again at the next quarterly meeting to see whether or not we need to continue to meet monthly. But I think that for the time being, I think that we should.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Bennett, go ahead.
I agree to the continuation of the monthly meeting, but I do think we could take consideration into on the quarterly meetings tying into one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Woodard?
A little difficulty getting unmuted here. Sorry about that. I echo the sentiment, and if I just add as well is that we've been discommunicative for a while, because of the pandemic, and we haven't had a meeting since February. So I'm sure there's going to be some things that'll come up, and we should just be ready and comfortable to meet regularly, at least for now. Yeah. So monthly.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Woodard. Yeah, I would agree with everyone. The monthly meeting, since we've been absent since February, is a good idea to still keep having. It's like Mr. Woodard said, especially with things that the country's dealing with currently. But I do want to agree with Mr. Bennett. I think for the quarterly meetings, we can just combine it into one. That way, we're not having an extra hour, taking up an extra hour of everyone's time, and be responsible people's time. So if let's go ahead and look at next month's meeting, which will still be virtually, unless somebody has a place to, if they have an option that will host somebody that will host us, and of course we'll have to meet to the guidelines. Currently, right now, we can only allow up to 50, I believe. However, depending on the space, that could be less. Does anybody have any recommendations as far as should we still do a virtual one? Should we look at a location? Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I report on the COVID cases on almost daily for West Side neighbors and Miller Park neighbors. And right now the counts are going up. So I think we should just stay virtual for now and let people come in. And the other thing is ask at the quarterly meeting today, bring it up in the conversation too. Does someone else want to host it? But the guidelines that we have to stay in to host it. But based on what's still happening right now, and the numbers keep going up locally every day now for the past week or so, I think we should stay in the realm that we're in right now, is doing virtual. Thank you.
This is George Boyle. With regard to the hosting, the amendments to the Open Meeting Act that are in effect refer to the regular meeting location. It doesn't mean that it can't be elsewhere, but it makes it a little bit more cumbersome during this time when the rules are in flux, to change locations from what would be the regular meeting location of the public body.
Mr. Taylor, did you have something? Oh, I'm sorry, Nora, go ahead.
I just want to add that as we consider continuing to meet virtually, which I think there will nearly have to be a component of that going forward, whatever venue we decide on would have to have some technical capabilities. But beyond that, unfortunately, our next meeting is scheduled for 8/12. Here at city facilities, we can only do one live stream at a time. So we would have to look at a different date or time anyway for the August meeting.
Thank you, Nora. Did anybody have anything else? If not, we can look at a date. Will August 13th be okay, Nora, or is that available currently?
I'll have to look at our meeting calendar and I can send out some possibilities to the board if that's okay.
Okay, if that's okay with the board, should we just go ahead and wait to see? Can we go ahead and pencil in August 13th, 3:30, or we can, if you guys want to come up with a different time, is 3:30 still okay with everybody?
I'm good with 3:30.
3:30 is fine with me.
Okay.
3:30 is fine.
Chief Wamsley, is that still okay with you?
I will not be here that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I do know Nora, I believe that is the servant leadership, them 2 days right there too. So if we could do it the week after, that would be great for me. But if not, I can always have somebody fill in for me on that aspect.
Chad is correct. I would also be unavailable that day, although Amy from our office could likely fill in here too. So don't let our availability stop you from looking at August 13th.
Is everybody still okay, comfortable with August 13th if Nora and Chief Wamsley can attend that day?
Yes.
Yes, and I think that that we should continue to meet, and that Chief Wamsley and Nora get the necessary substitutes that they need for to attend our meeting.
I will
And-
just kind of add in real quick, that Tuesday, the dates of that SRS conference, that's going to take away all 4 of us for that. So I just thought of that. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Again,
Chad,
I would,
does that mean that there'd be nobody available on the 13th from the BPD assistant chiefs and chief? Is that what you're saying? And the 13th is a Thursday.
13th and 14th.
Okay.
I would volunteer again to find some dates that might work for facilities and for staff, whether it be us or another A chief or, you know, someone in my place. We do have 2 minutes to finish this meeting.
Okay, so may I suggest that I'll get in contact with Nora and come up with a date and time, and then I will share that with everybody. Is that okay? And I think the topic we can do, and just in general, would be reflect on the quarterly meeting. Is that okay with everybody? Thumbs up?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, I will be in contact with Nora, and we'll come up with the date and time, and then I'll be sharing it with you guys shortly. Okay. With that being said, we got 2 minutes. Is there any other questions, discussions about this topic?
I just had one quick question. At the quarterly meeting, will the public be able to comment and and there be interaction within the quarterly meeting? Okay, that's all I need to ask.
Yes, they will be able to submit their questions. Okay, well, can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting if no other questions or comments? Oh, 1 second. Ms. Fish, go ahead. Oh. You have to unmute yourself.
I am seconding Jeff's motion to adjourn.
All right. So just a reminder, thank you. A reminder, make sure you log out, and then you'll have to log back in in order for the quarterly meeting. Okay? All right. This meeting is adjourned.